Everything is relative. What is the worst day ever for someone born into incomprehensible amounts of wealth could be the greatest day of a poor man's life. This is established, and a lot of people credit Einstein for that discovery. But, that's a pretty creative interpretation of what he really meant. His theories of special relativity and general relativity are discussing how the speed of an object affects its perception of time, and what I'm talking about is more of a moral life lesson, less sciencey. Suffering, to a degree, is how good people are made. It provides you with a wider spectrum of what is good and bad, and it shows you where you sit. It's not always a good thing, though. Some people may have a different view on the same kind of suffering that other people go through, and their takeaway from the situation may be less positive or self building. I believe it's important to focus on how you can interpret how your misfortunes have hardened you as an individual and improved your decision making rather than getting stuck in the rut of self pity. And it's perfectly okay to find yourself there, by the way. I don't mean to imply that you're more or less valuable because of how you've dealt with bad experiences in the past, but I do want it to be a moment of reflection. Have you ever refused to change yourself because of pride getting in the way? Like, have you ever been caught in a lie or proven wrong, and instead of owning up to it, you doubled down? I know I have, and I feel like a fool for it. I feel like an idiot. But knowing that now, and realizing that doubling down just stunts your personal growth, and it gives me assurance that I can realize that, because in the past I was just so afraid of being wrong about something that anytime I was caught being wrong, I didn't want people to think that I was wrong, because I felt like I was wrong all the time, and I was just trying to, I guess, in my head, minimize the amount of times that I was wrong about something. So I don't know, maybe if I did something like I left food out on the counter and because of that it spoiled, or I didn't clean up after myself, and I know it was me and someone accused me of it, but I know that I've already been caught doing that before, and I feel like shouldn't be known as the one who leaves out messes. I say, no, it wasn't me, no, it wasn't me. And everyone knows it was me, and me just doubling down and trying to say it wasn't, it makes me look like an even bigger, piece of shit, basically. But don't do that. I did that in the past, and it does not have the effect you think it does. Suffering is relative still, because every baseline is the same. But does that still lead to the same amount of character building for different people? Can two people in very different classes get the same amount of value for the same amount of relative suffering? Or are their viewpoints on the same spectrum, and the higher one would have to sink all the way down to the lower one in other... Or are their viewpoints on the same spectrum, and the higher one would have to sink all the way down to the lower one in order to match the other's growth, and vice versa? I think the suffering to growth is completely proportional, no matter where one would lie on the spectrum, because again, it's relative to the individual and their perception. Someone near the top who can only see up may think that they're at the bottom, and someone near the bottom who can only see down may think they're at the top, obviously. This all leads me to think that suffering has a different definition from person to person. Right now, for me, it's work. I really do not like my job, and I'm actively looking for a new one. Every day when I wake up for work, I sit in bed for as long as I possibly can. I contemplate not showing up at all. I think about calling in sick or quitting over the phone. Oftentimes I show up late. I show up late a lot. And that's a really bad thing to do, by the way. Don't do that. I'm surprised I haven't been fired, I'm not gonna lie. I look around at all my friends and my roommates, who they all make as much money as I do, or they make more money than I do. And all of them work less hours than I do, they don't have to drive as far as I do, and they aren't nearly as miserable when they're on the clock. So for me, my suffering right now is being a flat rate mechanic at a shop that gets no real work, full of a bunch of grumpy people, none of whom want to really be there, and all of which are probably feeling a similar type of suffering. And I'm just gonna complain a little bit. The shop environment is so hostile because everyone there is miserable, and they seem to take it out on each other all the time. The service managers and the general managers and all the old mechanics just bicker and fight, get into borderline screaming matches constantly over just the most menial things. And it's hard to be around. It stresses me out. And I feel like even if that were a little bit better, I might be able to tolerate the job more. But yeah, that's my little bit of ranting out of the way. And, obviously they can't be that miserable since, they plan on sticking around for 40, 50, 60 years, however long it takes to retire nowadays. And, this, for someone else, it's probably their dream to have a bed to sleep in, a car to get around in, and a job that can afford all of that. And yet here I am complaining about it. And I'm genuinely feeling despair, unrest, and stress from it. It has impacted my life outside of work dramatically. What would your definition of suffering be? I want to hear from you in the comments, or, message me over Instagram, I guess. If you want to do that, you can. My account is linked to my channel. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking around. My dream, I guess, what I can see to the top of, is to make my channel into something that's more than just a hobby. So one day I can do this for, a job. It can be my full-time thing. I can have a community of awesome people like those of you who are already here. So if you want to help with that, please go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you don't want to, I totally understand. It is a lot to ask for, after all, and the fact that you're listening to this already means you've helped me tremendously. So thank you, and have a fantastic day.